so thrilled that we are being joined once again by Alex Planck. He is the founder of WrongPlanet.net. You were with us on Monday with your filmmaker cohort, Noah Trevino, and you guys were talking about your film, Shameful.
Yes.
And we want to make sure that everybody watches Monday's show to hear about that, because really an incredible documentary that you guys have been working on about the atrocities that are happening in France having to do with autism.
Right.
But we asked you to come back today to talk about Wrong Planet.
Yes, we want to hear all about your endeavors with Wrong Planet, and what is Wrong Planet? How did it come about?
Well, Wrong Planet was started in 2004. I was diagnosed with Asperger syndrome, a form of autism, which now the DSM, they're sort of merging it together all to be part of the autism spectrum disorder. But I was diagnosed when I was 9, and I tried to find people who were like me. And oddly enough, there was literally no one that I could find in my hometown that had autism or Asperger syndrome.
What hometown was that, Alex?
It's a Charlottesville, Virginia. It's a big university town.
I'm from Richmond, so.
I mean, I'm sure there were tons of people there, you know,
Yes.
look at the numbers, but I couldn't connect with them. So by the time I was in high school, I had a lot of trouble making friends, and I went on the internet. And a friend of mine at the time that I'd also met on the internet, we decided to work on creating this website, which was designed to provide a community, a place for people on the autism spectrum to contact each other, to learn social skills, to make friends, to build a network. And what happened is a lot of people go on there, and that's their friend group. And it's created a lot of help for people who would be isolated otherwise. They wouldn't have any friends. Once I made friends on Wrong Planet, in a way it was sort of selfish for me to create the site because I just wanted friends, but everyone else did too, so it ended up becoming very popular pretty much overnight. We had thousands of people signing up.
That's great.
And now we have more than 70,000 members.
You know, this is such a great example of my motto of your disability, or so-called disability, is your opportunity, really. That you can take something that others might consider a drawback in your life, but you can really make it a platform for helping others. How you were diagnosed at the age of 9, and tell us what life was like for you at that time, and how did you get the support you needed, maybe from your parents, your family, and maybe educators, therapists, to make you become this remarkable young man you are today?
Well, I certainly just want to say that without my parents, I would probably not be as successful as I am right now. That they are pretty much the driving force for me being able to survive the school years, because having supportive parents is so important. And I speak to groups of parents all over the world about autism and Asperger syndrome, and I continually tell them that you're so important to your child's future. Having a positive outlook, having the belief that your child can succeed and will succeed is so important and so powerful. Certainly there are kids that have parents that aren't supportive, and they can succeed as well, but it's a bigger barrier because of that.
Yeah.
Well, and so how old were you when Wrong Planet actually launched?
I just turned 17.
Because I want to talk a little bit about that. That's pretty amazing. And to have done that, and you continually add things to Wrong Planet, that would be enough to have accomplished in a lifetime to be considered successful. But you've gone on to many other things that we'll talk about in a minute. But at 17, that's a pretty amazing feat. And, you know, did your parents, when you said, I have this idea, what was their reaction to it?
Well, they were happy that I was doing something that seemed to be constructive, for sure. I don't think they realized at the time what it was going to become. I mean, it didn't take very long for them to realize that it was becoming something big, though. I mean, within the first couple weeks, we were written about in the local paper there, and the news covered it, and then we started getting written about in national media pretty soon after that. And we still continue to be, in news a lot.
Yeah. I imagine you are offering a great forum now to talk about this issue, about the shootings in Newtown, and of course the assumption that has been made that the shooter has Asperger's, but dispelling myths. I'm sure you're doing a great job with all of your contributors at Wrong Planet with dispelling some of these myths.
Well, yeah, I mean, the great part about the community is that the minute something is in the news, is something on TV, within a second of it being on national news, someone had made a post,
Yes.
said, "We'll turn the TV on, there's been a shooting."
Yes.
And after that, shortly after that, there were multiple threads discussing different issues regarding it, and there was a thread to offer, prayers and wishes to the victims as well, showing that people with autism do, in fact, have compassion and empathy.
Yeah.
Yes.
But and then shortly after that, people started searching for the terms related to the shooting in Asperger's, and since we had already created those threads, like immediately, we were getting all those hits, which is good because that helped to dispel, I think, a lot of the myths that were associated.
I made a statement in an interview I did that children with Asperger's are more likely to be on the receiving end of violence rather than the giving end of violence.
True.
So let's talk about that for a minute.
Well, yeah.
Bullying. You were the subject of intense bullying growing up.
And it's hard because a lot of kids with autism, and I say that, but at the same time, there are a lot worse cases where people with autism are bullied more than I was. I would say that I was lucky in that I didn't get bullied as much as some people that I read about on the site who tell stories of having their head put in toilets at school and being beat and stuff like that. And that's a big problem. Obviously, that has nothing to do with them becoming violent, I don't think.
Right.
That's why I hate all this speculation about the shooting, because they're just putting that term autism in this article and don't explain or write any more details. Amy Harmon, two-time Pulitzer Award-winning journalist from the New York Times, wrote an article in which she quoted people from Wrong Planet, interviewed me, and wrote some quotes and dispelling those myths. And
that was a very thoughtful article. Maybe we can put the link up to that on our website.
We'll put that on our Facebook site.
Do you have advice, Alex, for first of all, parents out there who are parents of a young person on the spectrum, and also young people on the spectrum themselves that might be on the receiving end of bullying? Do you have advice?
Well, the advice that I can give is that the best thing to do is to report that to the school in a way that you don't get pegged as the one reporting it, because a lot of times what happens is you get bullied and you tell the teachers, and the problem is that other kids who are more socially adept are better at explaining themselves than others. Than people on the spectrum.
Really good,
so
very good
it ends up, a lot of times, the kids who are getting bullied end up getting in trouble.
Absolutely. And we've seen that time and time again. That's a really good point and something that I hadn't necessarily considered before. So telling somebody in the school and making sure that maybe talking to a parent first so that they can do it in a way that you're not pegged as the person who told.
Right. And a lot of the problem, though, is that it shouldn't be happening in the first place.
Exactly.
And if there's an issue like that, then there's a problem with the school itself and the way it's being run. And the schools need to be educated on how to prevent this from happening in the first place.
And what about, a lot of schools have things like buddy clubs for, especially I know at my own son's school, which is an elementary school, they have a friendship club that they sign up to be with my son on the playground. So the kids learn about him and they adore him at his school.
Which is a lovely thing.
That's great. And that, unfortunately, that's not happening at a lot of schools.
All right. Well, maybe
sure
we
isn't
can
happening
start.
I don't hear about that very frequently.
All right. Well, that's something, I think we can all use this horrible tragedy as a way that we can educate others about young people on the spectrum and encourage compassion. What do you wish people knew about individuals with Asperger's and other forms of autism, Alex?
I wish people knew that people with autism are really caring people, that they really want to make a difference, and a lot of times they're incredibly intelligent and have special interests that really make them a great benefit to society. We have a lot of people who I know of that have Asperger syndrome and done great things. Like there's a Nobel Prize-winning economist who's diagnosed with autism.
Okay.
He actually specifically said his name is, I think, Vernon Smith. I hope that's right.
Well, look at Temple Grandin, who established the humane way to kill animals and has become such a spokesperson.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's so many, and they even speculate. Many of our greatest leaders, I read an incredible book called Diagnosing Jefferson that had the theory that Jefferson had Asperger's.
I've read that book as well.
Yeah,
And of
very
course, we know that
interesting.
there are many individuals in very high levels being very successful who do not disclose, as is their right, what diagnosis they might have.
Yeah.
And it's important to respect that as well. But
Of course.
but the point is that there are wonderful things that come from this community. Wonderful, wonderful things.
For sure, and just to add on the fact of the economist I was talking about, he actually created the field of experimental economics and won the prize for that. And he said specifically in an interview I watched on TV where he was talking about it, he said that if he didn't have Asperger's syndrome, he doesn't think he would have done what he did. He would have been more focused on going out to parties and having, with friends.
Very true.
And there are a lot of people that say the same thing.
Absolutely.
Now we have a clip.
Yeah, we do. And I want to get back to talking a little bit more about Wrong Planet, but we do have a wonderful clip. We saw one before you came in about how to join a social circle, how to join a conversation. But we're going to show the one that you have about how to flirt. These are the kinds of things that you guys feature on Wrong Planet. I think so beneficial not only to people on the spectrum, but the kind of thing that everybody could stand to learn from. And really well done. So let's take a look at your clip on how to flirt.
Awesome.
Hi, and welcome to Autism Talk TV. This is the first of a new series of episodes featuring the Peers Center at UCLA, which does social skills training. So in this episode, Alex learns to flirt, and Alex will be flirting with a real girl at a real doctor's office. Stay tuned. Okay.
Hi, we're here with Liz Laugesen, and we're talking about dating etiquette as a part of our social skills series. Liz, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Dating is a really important part of a lot of people's lives, and one thing that I think a lot of us have trouble with is letting the other person, your interest, your romantic interest, know that you're interested. I know there's flirting and other ways of making that happen. Could you give me some advice on that?
Well, it's really interesting. They've done all this research that actually kind of breaks down what people do when they're flirting. And if they're flirting effectively, this is what it's supposed to look like. So you start by kind of making eye contact with the person, right? Okay, what do you think you do once you've sort of engaged them in the eye contact? What should you do?
Wait until they look away.
Well, okay, so if we do that, that might make it look like we're sort of staring at them, right? When they look over, let's say I'm looking over at you and you kind of look over at me. Should I do anything that
Smile.
I should smile, right? Absolutely. Do I want to do a big toothy smile, or do I want to do maybe just kind of a casual, kind of nice and friendly
Probably
smile?
casual.
Yeah, probably like a little casual, kind of nice little half smile maybe.
Yeah.
One of the things that you're going to need to be doing before you ever ask the person on a date is assessing whether or not it seems like they're interested in you at all. And so by this point, we should have been trading information and finding some common interests with this person. And that's typically how it starts when you ask someone out on a date. You're just kind of casually talking, you're trading information back and forth, you're talking about something that's interesting to both of you.
Are you watching Midnight in Paris on your iPhone?
I am. Do you know of it?
Yeah, I love Woody Allen.
Oh, so do I. This is one of my favorite movies.
Do you have a favorite of his?
Oh, I don't know. What's yours?
It's called Manhattan.
Oh, I've never seen that one.
Oh man, that's his best movie.
Oh, I should definitely check it out then.
Let's say we find out that we both are interested in seeing some movie that's coming out soon. You might say, well, so what are you doing this weekend? So you're kind of assessing before you ever ask them out how they react to that kind of question. So if they say, oh, nothing.
Yeah, that's a sign that they want you to ask them to do anything.
That's a good sign.
Actually, they're playing it at that art house theater on Sepulveda next week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that seems interesting.
Yeah, what are you doing next week?
I don't have any plans as of right now.
Oh, well, you should come with me and watch it.
That would be really fun.
And that's also where you would ask for things like contact information, cell phone numbers, things if you didn't already have them.
Right. Well, you want to exchange numbers or?
Of course.
So basically those are the steps for, asking someone out on a date. You just want to be trading information, find some common interests, ask them if they're sort of available on whatever time. If they seem interested, maybe ask them out related to that common interest, and then, exchange the contact information and all of that.
Now, is there something to be said about practicing these things?
Definitely. I mean, all of the skills that we teach in peers, we not only go over these rules and steps of social etiquette, but then we actually want to demonstrate what they look like to our kids and then have them practice.
I love
Great
that.
video.
Just
Wonderful
great.
video. Our special guest, if you're just joining us, is Alex Planck from Wrong Planet, the founder of Wrong Planet, and Alex was just featured in that video. And this is just one video, but so well done, of the kinds of things that you guys feature on Wrong Planet. But for somebody who's never been there before, and they should go there today, wrongplanet.net, important that they know .net. What kinds of things, other than this video, what kinds of things can they find there?
We have a variety of other videos related to social skills, and we have a variety of articles specifically related to social skills, interviews, columns by various people on the spectrum, parents, professionals, and we also have a incredibly large forum community where people are discussing issues all the time, and I'd say that that's like the biggest draw in a way.
Okay.
And we also have a chat room where there's more than 100 people always in the chat room talking.
And as you say, it's a great way for others out there to establish connections.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to meet other people like you, and when you go on the internet, I think that's made it possible for a lot of us to finally find people that are into the same things that we are. Everyone, not just autism, any sort of special interest you have.
Now, Shannon and I were asking you about dating.
Yes,
as we were watching.
because it was so fun to watch that, and I was saying, really, there are so many people who can use that video, and it has nothing to do with being on a spectrum or not. But I think most people would be interested in that and go, that's so interesting. But we were asking you during the break, and you were saying that, we said, Alex, is it okay to ask you, do you date? And you said that, in fact, you do.
Yeah.
And I think there are so many parents out there who, that alone, doesn't that make you excited, Nancy?
Yes,
I mean, the
very
idea
excited.
of my son going on a date is, he's 9. We're going to wait a while.
Yeah,
but
we're going to wait. Mine's 11.
but it's
although
a
the
thrilling.
girls seem to like him. He's the silent type that they like to chase after.
My son is quite the opposite. The talker who hugs everyone.
Okay. But you've been in
Has his place.
relationships,
Oh yeah,
romantic
for sure.
relationships.
Definitely. I've been in romantic relationships. I date, and I like to say that it's hard to date, but everyone I tell it to is like, oh well, it's hard to date in LA. Period.
There you go.
It's hard for everyone to date, Alex, not just those with Asperger's.
And not just people in LA.
That's right.
That's right. It's a
Dating
tough
is
thing.
a whole other world.
We all remember that. But I'm curious to know what kinds of things. What are some major topics threads that you have in your discussion groups on the site, wrongplanet.net?
Well, you mentioned dating, and there's an entire forum that's incredibly active on that, and people, and I'm not the only one. There are people other people out there dating. There are people in relationships. So to think that your kid, or to think that you won't be able to date because you're on the autism spectrum is patently absurd.
Okay,
it's
great. We love that.
It's ridiculous to think
And get married?
Yeah, there are people who have been married because they met on my website.
Right.
So not only people are looking for advice and suggestions, but in some cases they're actually meeting people
and getting married because of it.
Yeah,
It's
and
pretty incredible.
Getting into relationships,
Yeah.
sometimes long distance, but
Right.
Yeah.
There was a
That's
lovely
great.
article about love on the autism spectrum that was done in the New York Times, featuring a couple. I think it was last fall, wasn't
Yes,
it? And
it
you,
was.
of course, know what I'm referring
Oh
to.
yeah, I mean actually
And
it's the couple, if you've watched the videos, the girl who was introing that last video is the girl from the
I
Okay.
did not realize that.
She's a member of the TV show, her and Jack.
How wonderful. And
And-
they talk about the purpose that Wrong Planet served in their relationship, because their relationship had a very interesting beginning, and that she thought that she was getting into this relationship with a young man who was on the spectrum. Do I have this right? And then she went and looked at the site and realized that she also...
Well, she was already a member of Wrong Planet before Jack was. So it's Jack Robeson and Kirsten Lynn Smith are the two, and they're about my age. They're a couple years younger. I think Kirsten right now is finishing up her finals in college. I'm not sure if she has another year to go, but they're doing that. And Jack's also in college, and Jack's father is John Robeson, the author of Look Me in the Eye.
Okay.
So that's how I met Jack, and it turned out that Kirsten was already a member of Wrong Planet when I met her.
Okay.
But am I correct, though, that she didn't realize, she knew that there was something about the way she looked at the world that was different and that she wasn't able to put a label on it until she got to Wrong Planet? Or do I have that wrong?
I believe that's the case. I don't know if she had an official diagnosis when she was first on there. I want to get the facts straight. That's why I'm trying not to discuss it. The article in the New York Times actually is coming out in an extended form where in a Kindle version soon, where you can buy it and read more.
Oh, good.
And it'll have more about me specifically, and more about Jack and Kirsten as well.
We'll give a link to that at some point.
And when is that expected to come out?
Not sure.
Okay.
We'll keep our viewers updated. If there was one thing, Alex, and I know this is kind of putting you on the spot, but let's say there's a parent out there listening today, a young person with Asperger's, high-functioning autism, and they're feeling isolated, they're feeling that they don't know where to go to make connections. What advice would you give them?
First of all, I would tell them to go on the site, because I was feeling the same way until I found friends on the site. And because of the friends I did find on the internet, I was able to make friends in real life more, because I was more confident about going into social situations and things of that nature. Other than that, I would say find a group that they're interested in, special interests. People on the autism spectrum usually have perseverations on some topic.
Yes.
There are groups for pretty much every topic out there in clubs. And if you can find a club they can join, and I don't know, if they're young, tell them they have to go.
And if a parent thinks that their child might have Asperger's or an autism spectrum disorder, but they're not sure and maybe they're a little bit in denial, what would you say to those parents?
Well, it's hard if they're in denial, but if they're in denial, one thing I would tell them is that it's not something to be ashamed of. I mean, show examples of positive people who have autism. People like Temple Grant and John Robeson.
And people like Alex Planck.
And show those examples, and there's so many more that really help people deal with it, because it is something that when you hear about it, you might sort of think of it as something with a stigma, and you don't want that.
And we're here to dispel that.
Absolutely.
And you've come a long way to helping us with that, and we want to thank you for joining us today.
I have one last question, for parents who have children on the spectrum, what age is a good age to start going to Wrong Planet? For
parents, there are parents of kids that are as young as I think 1 or 2.
But for when they're kids, so if you have a 12-year-old, is it appropriate to be on Wrong Planet?
Yeah, for sure. There's a kids section.
Okay,
I've seen 9 and 8-year-olds, but I would say that if you're a parent of a kid, I would,
you can go on today.
Yeah, I would be on the site with my kid if they were younger than 9 or 10.
Okay.
Just to be because anytime you go on the internet is long, just to make sure that you're
absolutely. All right, wonderful. We thank you so much.
Well, thank you for coming, and we're going to have you back hopefully many times.
Yes, we're hoping to have Alex be a regular here on Autism Live every week, having him give his input on things, and we're looking forward to that.